mentioned it at the onset. We have reached the mid-season point of the 2023 season for the Astros. At this point, gentlemen, who is the Astros 2023 mid-season Rookie of the Year?
Well, I still think it's Hunter Brown, but amazingly, here comes JP France. I still go with Hunter Brown, that from the start of the season, he was entrusted with a very important role. Obviously, that grew in significance when Garcia and Urquidy both went down. We can't call it an Astros big three. In fact, at this point, it's a big one with Javier's struggles. And Hunter Brown has been up and down, and you have to be wary of his workload over the rest of the season. But that his next start will be his 17th before the All-Star break. He'll go into it with an earned run average of 3.76. Not special, but fine. The fact that he's thrown 90 innings, to me, I'm going to give credit for that over JP France, who, when he goes against the Rockies, will take them out with a 3.13 ERA, notably better than Hunter Brown, but over 10 starts and 60 innings. Not to numb with numbers, but if JP France was to pitch to equal Hunter Brown's innings pitched, he could do so with an ERA of 4.70 over the 30 and a third innings that he has to equal Hunter Brown, and he'd have Hunter Brown's ERA. Well, JP France obviously has pitched a lot better than a 4.70 earned run average, but I'm going to give the lean to Hunter Brown on quantity at this point, but it's a race.
Yeah, I'll go the other way. I'll go with JP France. I agree with everything Charlie said there. I'm just going to give him the nod because the ERA is a little bit better. This will be his 11th start when he makes it this week. So that's, a decent sample size. Obviously not as much as Hunter Brown, but in expectations wise, I wasn't expecting JP France to come up and be a guy that I feel like they could win any ball game that he's pitching. He keeps them in it pretty much every time. So I like his cutter. He passes the eye test for me. And that's what I'm excited about with JP France, because I had no expectations. And he's not a guy that throws 98 miles an hour or anything like that, 93, 94, but he can locate. And I've been impressed, and they're going to need a lean on him. They need pitching. They'll probably trade for some more, but him and Hunter Brown, with Javier struggles, they're going to need those guys.
The other name that rates a mention is Yainer Diaz, but I don't think he has the bulk of numbers to this point to rate as the Astros Rookie of the Year. But if he's going to get close to full-time playing time the rest of the year, we'll see how the DH at-bats work, how much left field will Yordan play as opposed to designated hitter, and if Dusty will smell some of the coffee as Maldonado sinks toward 170. And, catching Yoda hasn't figured it out with Javier. He hasn't figured it out with Montero. Hunter Brown's numbers are still better when Yainer Diaz is catching. So Maldonado, as catching consultant, paid very well for the rest of the season, with Diaz getting at least half the playing time behind the plate. But I feel like I'm spitting rather hard into the wind.
If you had told me at the beginning of the season that the Astros were going to lose McCullers and Garcia for the season and Urquidy for a big chunk of time, you really would think, well, there's not really, we know there's nothing in the farm system, so there's not really much hope for the season. And yet you've gotten the performances. We had an idea of how good Brown was going to be. We really had no expectation that JP France would be somebody that the Astros could tap and he'd come up and be effective this early to this extent. Now, granted, Charlie, you touched on something that worries me a lot, which is workload for JP France. And so as the season draws on, we'll keep an eye on that. I'm going to give an honorable mention because I agree. I think it's either one of those two guys. I'm just going to give an honorable mention to Corey Julks, who, again, another guy who, we were shocked that he even made the roster after spring training, and for him to be hitting 262 at this point in the season, and his OPS is just shy of 700. But again, this is a guy who you're only having to rely on because of the Yordan injury and because Brantley's not coming back anytime soon. So you weren't expecting to rely on him this much, and he's given you a lot. And I know he doesn't draw walks, and he's wildly inconsistent at the plate. But at the same time, to get that kind of production out of him, it's not quite as impressive of what Dubon has done this season, but both of those guys have given you a lot. But if we're talking about rookies, and obviously Corey Julks is the rookie, Dubon is not. But I think what Julks has given you in relief of or in absence of Jordan has been every bit as important as what Dubon's given you in the absence of Altuve and now Jeremy Pena.